take the money and walk away, that's all you were ever meant to be." The words land colder than the rain pouring over the city, each drop echoing against the pavement like a countdown she never agreed to join, and Clara Hayes stands there for 1 second too long, her fingers tightening around the worn strap of her bag, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and something far more fragile. Because just hours ago she was standing under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers in a penthouse that didn't feel like hers but somehow felt warmer when he was near. And now Adrian Wolfe, the man who built empires out of silence and control, is looking at her like she's nothing more than a mistake he's finally decided to correct, and she almost laughs, not because it's funny but because it hurts in a way she didn't see coming, not from him, not after everything, not after the quiet dinners where he barely spoke but always listened, not after the night he paused outside her tiny apartment building and said nothing while she talked about dreams she wasn't sure she deserved. Not after the way his hand hovered just inches from hers like he was fighting something invisible, something stronger than both of them, and now he's standing here in a perfectly tailored coat, rain sliding off his shoulders like the world bends around him, and he's choosing this moment, this exact moment, to push her out of it completely. Clara swallows, her throat tight, her heart louder than the storm, and for a split second she searches his eyes, looking for the man she thought she saw, the one who stayed too long in silence, the one who softened when he thought no one noticed, but all she finds is distance, practiced and precise, the kind that doesn't break, the kind that was built long before she ever walked into his life with nothing but a sketchbook and a quiet kind of courage, and maybe that's when it hits her, not all at once but like a slow crack forming beneath her feet, that whatever this was, whatever it almost became, was never something he planned to keep, and still, it doesn't stop the ache, it doesn't stop the way her chest tightens when she remembers the way he looked at her drawings. Like they meant something, like she meant something, and now he's offering money like it can erase every moment, like it can rewrite the nights where he didn't feel so untouchable, like it can silence the part of her that believed him when he said nothing at all. Clara exhales, steady this time, and without another word she steps back, just once, not dramatic, not rushed, just enough to create space where something fragile used to exist, and she nods. Small, almost invisible, but it's enough. Enough to tell him she understands more than he thinks she does, enough to let him believe he's in control of how this ends, and then she turns, walking into the rain without looking back, because if she does, even for a second, she might see something she's not strong enough to ignore, and behind her, Adrian Wolfe doesn't move, not right away, not as the space between them grows, not as the sound of her footsteps fades into the storm. Because for the first time in a long time, something inside him shifts, subtle but undeniable, like a crack in a structure he thought was unbreakable, and he tells himself it's nothing, that this was necessary, that pushing her away was the right choice, the only choice, but as the rain keeps falling and the city keeps moving, one thought lingers longer than it should, quiet but persistent, and he can't quite shake it. What if walking away wasn't the end, but the moment everything started to fall apart? The next morning does not feel like a new beginning, it feels like something unfinished, like a sentence cut off before it could mean anything, and Clara Hayes wakes up in a small room that smells faintly of old wood and coffee, the kind of place that rents by the week and asks no questions, and for a moment she just stares at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of traffic outside, trying to convince herself that last night was exactly what it looked like. Nothing more, nothing less, a transaction that finally reached its expiration date, but her chest tightens anyway, because no matter how many times she replays his words, there is something about the way he said them that does not quite match the man she thought she knew, and she hates that part of her, the part that still wants to understand him, the part that still wants to believe there was something real behind all that distance. She exhales slowly and sits up, pulling her sketchbook from her bag almost instinctively, her fingers brushing over the worn edges, the pages filled with quick pencil lines and unfinished ideas, and she flips through them until she lands on a drawing she does not remember finishing. A quiet scene of a man standing by a window, city lights stretching endlessly behind him, his posture rigid but his expression softer than he ever allowed anyone to see, and she freezes, because she knows exactly who it is, even without a name written anywhere, even without meaning to. She had seen him in a way he never intended, and for a second it feels like holding something fragile that does not belong to her anymore, so she closes the sketchbook gently and sets it aside, like putting distance between herself and a memory that is still too close. Across the city, Adrian Wolfe stands in front of a floor-to-ceiling window in his penthouse, the skyline sharp against the morning light, everything exactly where it should be, everything controlled, predictable, untouched, and yet something feels off, not dramatic, not obvious, just a quiet absence that lingers in the spaces he does not usually notice, the empty chair across the table, the silence that stretches longer than it should, the way his phone remains still when he half expects it to light up with a message that will not come, and he tells himself it is nothing, that this is what normal feels like, that this is what he chose, but his eyes drift to the corner of the room where a small object rests on the table, something he had not paid attention to last night, something he almost missed entirely, and when he walks over and picks it up, his fingers pause, because it is her sketchbook, the same one she always carried, the same one she guarded like it held pieces of her she was not ready to give away. And for a moment he just stands there, staring at it like it might explain something he cannot quite name. He should leave it, he should have someone return it, he should not open it at all, but his thumb moves anyway, slow and hesitant, flipping past page after page of quiet moments captured in graphite, until he realizes with a subtle, unsettling clarity that most of them are him, not the version the world sees, not the version he carefully constructs, but something else, something unguarded, something real, and his jaw tightens slightly as he turns another page, the memory of her voice slipping through his thoughts like an echo he cannot silence. You do not have to push people away to stay safe, and for the first time since she walked out into the rain, the certainty he held onto so tightly begins to feel less like control and more like something he is no longer sure he understands. Clara Hay spends the rest of the day moving without direction, walking through streets that feel both familiar and strangely distant, like she is seeing everything from the outside for the first time, and by late afternoon she finds herself back at the small diner where she used to work before everything changed, the bell above the door chiming softly as she steps inside, the scent of coffee and warm bread wrapping around her like something steady, something real. And for a moment she just stands there, taking it in, the worn booths, the quiet conversations, the kind of place where no one pretends to be anything other than who they are, and it feels grounding in a way she did not expect, like she can finally breathe without thinking about who she is supposed to be. Her former manager looks up from behind the counter, surprised but not questioning, just offering a small nod and a simple welcome back that carries no judgment, no curiosity, and Clara smiles faintly, grateful for that more than anything, because here she does not have to explain why she left or why she returned, she can just exist, and as she ties her apron and steps back into a rhythm she knows by heart, taking orders, pouring coffee, moving between tables with quiet efficiency, something inside her begins to settle, not fully healed, not even close, but steadier than it was this morning. Across the city Adrian Wolfe sits at the head of a long conference table, voices around him discussing numbers, projections, decisions that once demanded his full attention, but today the words blur together, fading into the background as his mind drifts somewhere he does not allow it to go, back to the sketchbook still resting in his office, back to the lines she drew with such quiet certainty, lines that revealed a version of him he never acknowledged, and he catches himself staring at nothing, his hand still, his expression unreadable, until someone calls his name and he snaps back, offering a response that sounds correct but feels disconnected, and it frustrates him more than he expects, because this is not how he operates. He does not lose focus, he does not let anything interfere with what matters, and yet something already has, something small and persistent, something he cannot simply dismiss. Later that evening he returns to his office alone, the building quiet now, lights dimmed, the city stretching endlessly beyond the glass, and he walks straight to the desk where the sketchbook lies, untouched since this morning, as if it has been waiting for him, and he hesitates for only a second before opening it again, slower this time, more deliberate, studying each page not just as drawings but as moments he did not realize were being seen, and with each turn he feels a shift he cannot explain, subtle but undeniable, because she did not just capture what he showed the world, she captured what he tried to hide from it. And when he reaches the final page, his breath stills, because this one is different, unfinished, softer, a simple sketch of two figures standing close but not touching, space between them that feels intentional, and beneath it, written in small careful letters, are words he does not remember her ever saying out loud, but somehow they feel louder than anything she could have said. Some distances are chosen, others are created out of fear, and Adrian closes the sketchbook slowly, the weight of it heavier than it should be, because for the first time he cannot ignore the possibility that what he thought was control might have been something else entirely, something that is now slipping through his hands in a way he is no longer sure he can stop. The Next evening settles in slower than usual, as if time itself is hesitating, and Clara Hayes stands behind the counter of the diner with a coffee pot in her hand, watching the quiet rhythm of the place unfold around her, the low murmur of conversations, the soft clink of plates, the kind of steady life that does not demand anything more than presence, and she tells herself this is enough, that this simplicity is what she needs now, something real, something grounded, but every so often her thoughts drift without permission, slipping back to moments she has tried not to revisit, the way Adrian used to pause before answering her questions, like he was choosing words carefully even when he did not have to, the way silence between them never felt empty until it suddenly did, and she tightens her grip on the coffee pot slightly, pulling herself back into the present, because thinking about it does not change anything. It does not rewrite what happened, it does not make his words any less final. Across the city Adrian Wolfe sits alone in his penthouse, the lights dim, the skyline stretching endlessly beyond the glass, but tonight it feels different, not impressive, not powerful, just distant, like something he is no longer connected to, and he has not turned on the television, has not opened his laptop, has not answered the calls that keep lighting up his phone, because none of it feels urgent in the way it used to, none of it feels like it matters enough to pull him away from the one thing he cannot seem to stop thinking about, and after a long moment he stands, walking across the room with a quiet decisiveness that surprises even him, his hand reaching for his coat without hesitation, because for the first time he is not calculating, not weighing outcomes, not controlling the situation before it happens, he is simply moving, driven by something unfamiliar and unstructured. And less than 30 minutes later he finds himself standing outside the diner, the same one he once dismissed as insignificant, the neon sign glowing softly against the dark, the kind of place he would have never stepped into before, and yet here he is, watching through the window as Clara moves between tables, her expression calm, focused, like she has found a way to exist without him in a way he did not expect, and something tightens in his chest, not sharp, not overwhelming, but steady, like a realization settling into place, because she looks like she belongs there, like she was always enough without anything he offered, and for a moment he almost turns away, almost convinces himself that this is not necessary, that he has already done enough damage and should not complicate it further, but then she laughs softly at something a customer says, a small, unguarded sound that reaches him even through the glass, and it stops him completely, because he realizes how quiet everything has been without it, how empty the silence has become without something to break it, and before he can second-guess himself again he pushes the door open, the bell chiming softly as he steps inside, the warmth of the diner hitting him immediately, so different from the controlled environment he is used to, and Clara looks up instinctively, her eyes meeting his across the room for just a second, long enough for something unspoken to pass between them, not resolution, not forgiveness, just recognition, and she does not smile, does not react beyond that brief moment, she simply looks away and continues what she was doing, as if he is just another customer, and somehow that feels heavier than anything he expected, because for the first time he is not the one deciding the distance between them. Adrian does not choose a table right away, he stands there for a second longer than anyone else would, the low hum of the diner pressing in around him, the scent of coffee and something warm and familiar settling into the air, and it feels strangely disarming, like stepping into a place where control does not belong to him, where nothing adjusts to his presence, and eventually he moves toward a corner booth, quiet, out of the way, the kind of seat that lets him observe without interrupting, but tonight even that feels different, because he is not here to watch, he is here because something inside him would not let him stay away. Clara moves through the room with the same steady rhythm, taking orders, refilling cups, her focus anchored in the present, and she does not look at him again, not even in passing, not even by accident, and it is not avoidance, it is something more deliberate, something that says she has already decided how much space he gets in her world now. And for the first time Adrian understands what it feels like to be on the outside of a decision he cannot influence. A waitress he does not recognize walks over to his table, offering a polite smile, asking what he would like, and for a moment he hesitates, because he does not even know why he is here beyond a feeling he cannot explain, but he orders anyway, something simple, coffee and whatever is easiest, his voice steady but quieter than usual, and as the minutes pass he finds himself watching the small details he never noticed before, the way Clara tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear when she is concentrating, the way she pauses to listen fully when someone speaks to her, the way she thanks people like it matters, like every interaction holds weight, and it does something unexpected to him. It strips away the version of her that existed in his world, the one shaped by contracts and expectations, and replaces it with something more real, something he had overlooked because he never had to see it this clearly. His coffee arrives, placed in front of him without ceremony, and when he looks up it is not Clara, it is someone else, and he realizes then that she is not coming over, not tonight, not for him, and he exhales slowly, leaning back against the booth, letting that settle in, because this is what distance actually looks like, not dramatic, not loud, just quiet and complete, and for the first time he does not try to change it immediately, he does not call her name, does not demand her attention, he just sits there, present in a space where he does not hold control, and somewhere across the room Clara feels it. Not his gaze exactly, but his presence, steady and unintrusive, and it unsettles her more than she expects, because she had prepared herself for something else, for confrontation, for explanations, for words she is not ready to hear, but this silence is different, this restraint is unfamiliar, and she finds herself glancing toward him once, just briefly, enough to confirm he is still there, sitting quietly, not watching her in a way that feels invasive, just existing, and she looks away again quickly, her heart steady but aware, because whatever this is, whatever he is doing, it is not the version of him she left in the rain, and that realization, quiet as it is, lingers longer than she wants it to. The minutes stretch into something slower than time, and Adrian remains seated in the corner booth long after his coffee has gone untouched, the surface cooling in quiet neglect, and he does not reach for it, does not check his phone, does not fill the silence with the usual distractions that once defined his world, because for the first time he is sitting inside a moment he cannot control and choosing not to escape it. And across the diner Clara continues moving through her shift, steady, composed, but there is a subtle shift in her rhythm now, something almost imperceptible to anyone else, the way her movements pause just a fraction longer between tables, the way her thoughts seem to catch on something she cannot quite shake, because his presence, quiet as it is, refuses to disappear, and it unsettles her in a way she did not prepare for. She had expected confrontation, expected words, expected him to try and explain or justify what he did, and she had prepared herself to stay distant, to stay firm, but this silence, this restraint, it creates a different kind of tension, one that leaves space for questions she does not want to ask. As the evening moves toward closing, the crowd begins to thin, chairs scrape softly against the floor, lights dim just slightly, and Clara finally steps behind the counter to settle the last of the checks, her hands moving automatically through the motions, and when she glances up again, he is still there, exactly where he has been, not impatient, not demanding, just present, and something about that steadiness presses against the walls she has carefully built since she walked away, because it does not match the man who told her to leave, it does not match the cold certainty in his voice that night. And yet she refuses to let that thought take hold, because inconsistency does not erase what was said, it does not undo the choice he made. Adrian watches the room slowly empty, each passing minute sharpening his awareness of the distance that now exists between them, a distance he created so deliberately, so confidently, and now finds himself unsure how to cross, and for once he does not rely on instinct or strategy. He does not look for the fastest way to resolve it, he simply waits, letting the moment unfold without forcing it, until finally Clara steps out from behind the counter, her apron untied, her posture tired but composed, and she walks toward the door to flip the sign from open to closed, her movements calm, deliberate, and as she turns back into the room, she pauses when she sees that he has not left, their eyes meeting again, longer this time, no distractions, no noise to soften it, just a quiet understanding of everything that has not been said, and Adrian stands slowly, not abrupt, not imposing, just enough to close the physical gap by a few steps, but still leaving space between them, because for the first time he understands that this space is no longer his to control, and when he finally speaks, his voice is quieter than she remembers, steady but stripped of the distance he once held onto so tightly, and he does not offer excuses, does not reach for the kind of words that would make this easier, because he knows there are none, and Clara listens without interrupting, her expression unreadable, her guard still firmly in place, but there is something different in the air now, not forgiveness, not even trust, just the beginning of something more uncertain, more fragile, something that cannot be defined yet, and as the silence settles between them once more, it no longer feels like an ending, but something far more dangerous, the possibility of what comes next. Clara does not speak right away, and that silence stretches just enough to make every second feel deliberate, like she is choosing whether this moment deserves a response or not, and Adrian does not rush it, does not fill the space the way he used to, because he understands now that anything forced will only break what little remains between them, and when she finally exhales, her voice is calm, steady, but there is a weight behind it that was not there before, something shaped by what he said, what he chose, what he ended, and she looks at him fully this time, not avoiding, not softening, just seeing him as he is, and that alone makes it harder than anything he expected, because there is no illusion left to hide behind, no version of himself he can perform, only the truth of what he did and the consequences that followed. She tells him quietly that words do not change what happened, that showing up here does not undo the way he pushed her out like she meant nothing, and her tone never rises, never breaks, which somehow makes it sharper because it is not anger driving her, it is clarity, and Adrian listens without interrupting, his posture still, his gaze steady but no longer guarded, because for the first time he is not trying to defend himself, he is trying to understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of his choices, and when he finally speaks, he does not explain everything, does not unravel the entire truth all at once, he simply says that he was wrong, not as a strategy, not as a calculated move, but as something direct and unprotected, and it lands differently than he expects, because Clara does not react to it immediately. She studies him for a second longer, like she is trying to decide if this version of him is real or just another layer she has not seen yet, and that uncertainty lingers between them, fragile and unresolved. She shifts slightly, her hand brushing against the edge of the counter behind her, grounding herself in something solid, something familiar, because this conversation is not easy, not after everything, and she tells him that he does not get to step back into her life just because he realized something too late, that walking away was not just a moment. It was a choice, and choices have weight. They leave marks even when nothing visible remains, and Adrian nods slowly, not in agreement alone but in acceptance, because he cannot argue with that, he cannot rewrite what he did or minimize what it meant, and for a second he almost stops there, almost accepts that this is as far as he gets, that this is the consequence he has to live with, but something in him refuses to let the moment close without trying, not to fix it instantly, not to demand anything in return, but to be honest in a way he has never allowed himself to be before, and he tells her, quietly but without hesitation, that pushing her away was never about her not being enough, that it was about him not knowing how to hold on to something real without breaking it, and the words hang there, simple but heavy, because they do not excuse anything, they just reveal a truth he has avoided for too long, and Clara hears it, really hears it, even if she does not want to, and something shifts slightly beneath her guarded expression, not enough to change everything, not enough to erase the distance, but enough to acknowledge that this conversation is no longer just about what was lost. It is about what could still exist if she chooses to allow it, and that choice, for the first time, belongs entirely to her. Clara does not answer immediately, and that pause carries more weight than anything she could say, because for the first time since he walked back into her world, she is not reacting to him, she is deciding for herself, and Adrian can see it in the way she holds her posture, steady but guarded, like she has learned how to stand without leaning on anyone else, and it forces him to confront something he has never had to face before, that whatever happens next is not something he can influence with power or certainty, only with honesty, and even that may not be enough. The quiet inside the diner feels different now, heavier but also clearer, like everything unnecessary has been stripped away, leaving only what matters, and Clara finally speaks, her voice calm but firm, telling him that understanding why he did it does not erase the fact that he did it, that knowing he was afraid does not make the outcome any less real, and Adrian nods slowly, not because he agrees in a distant way, but because he feels the truth of it settling deeper than he expected, and for a moment neither of them moves, the distance between them still present but no longer undefined, and then she asks him something simple, something direct, something he cannot answer without being completely honest. She asks him what he wants now, not what he thinks is right, not what he believes he should say, but what he actually wants, and the question lands differently than anything else, because it removes every layer he usually hides behind. It demands clarity without strategy, and Adrian takes a slow breath, his gaze steady on her, and for once he does not hesitate. He tells her that he wants a chance, not to go back to what they had, not to pretend it never broke, but to start again without the rules he created to protect himself, without the distance he used to control everything, and the simplicity of it makes it more real than anything he has said before, because there is no condition attached, no expectation hidden beneath it, just a request that places the decision entirely in her hands, and Clara listens. Her expression unreadable at first, but something shifts quietly behind her eyes, not softness exactly, not yet, but recognition, because this is the first time he has spoken without trying to shape the outcome, the first time he has let himself be uncertain in front of her, and that matters more than she wants it to. She looks down for a brief second, her fingers brushing lightly against the counter as if grounding herself again. Because this is not easy, not after everything, and she knows that whatever she decides will change more than just this moment, it will define what she allows back into her life, and when she looks up again, her voice is softer but still steady. She tells him that starting again does not mean forgetting, that trust does not return just because he asks for it, it has to be rebuilt, slowly, carefully, and Adrian listens without interruption, because this is what he came for, not forgiveness handed freely, but a path he has to earn, and when she finally steps closer, closing just a small part of the space between them, it is not a dramatic gesture, it is not a complete resolution, but it is enough to signal something has shifted, something fragile but real. And she tells him that if he wants a chance, then he has to stay, not just tonight, not just in moments that are easy, but in the quiet, ordinary days where nothing is guaranteed, and for the first time since he walked into the diner, Adrian allows himself to nod without reservation, because this is not about control anymore, it is about showing up, and that is something he is finally ready to learn. The days that follow do not transform everything overnight. There is no sudden shift, no dramatic resolution that erases what happened. Instead there is something quieter, something more deliberate, and it begins the next morning when Clara arrives at the diner just after sunrise, the sky still pale, the streets not fully awake, and she does not expect to see him there, but he is, sitting at the same corner booth. A simple cup of coffee in front of him, untouched, his posture relaxed in a way that feels unfamiliar, and when she steps inside he does not stand immediately, does not try to meet her halfway before she is ready, he simply looks up, a small nod, an acknowledgement that carries no pressure, and she notices it, the restraint, the patience, the absence of control, and it does something subtle inside her, not enough to trust, not yet, but enough to believe that he heard what she said, that he is choosing to show up differently. And as the morning unfolds, it continues like that, small moments, almost unremarkable on their own. He stays through the breakfast rush without interrupting her work, without pulling her into conversation she is not ready to have. He pays for his coffee like anyone else, thanks the staff without expectation, and when she finally approaches his table hours later, it is on her terms, her timing, and the conversation is simple, not about the past, not about fixing anything, just a quiet exchange that feels grounded, real, and that is where it starts, not with promises, but with presence, and over the next few days it repeats. He comes back, not to demand, not to prove something grand, but to be there, consistently, steadily, learning a rhythm he has never had to follow before, and Clara watches, not openly, not in a way that invites him in too quickly, but carefully, measuring actions instead of words, because she knows now that words can be controlled, shaped, used to create something that feels real without actually being it, but actions, especially the quiet ones, they are harder to fake, and slowly, almost without realizing it, the distance between them begins to shift, not closing completely, but softening at the edges. Conversations become a little longer, glances linger just a second more, and one evening, as the diner closes again and the world outside settles into a quiet hum, Clara walks over to his table without hesitation, her movement steady, her expression calm, and she sets something down